I still remember the last time I saw her. Clara stood at the door of my apartment, wrapped in that soft beige coat she always wore on cold evenings. Her auburn hair was slightly damp from the rain, and her hazel eyes were unreadable, somewhere between calm and distant. We had just had dinner. We kissed. She laughed at my stupid joke about the waiter's mustache. Nothing about that night warned me it would be the last time she'd speak to me. The next morning, my messages went unanswered. I figured she was busy. Then a whole day passed. Then 2. Calls went to voicemail. Texts were left on read. No hey babe, no good night, nothing. At first I panicked. Something had to have happened. An emergency. A family issue. Clara wasn't the type to just disappear. I called everyone I knew, mutual friends, even her older sister Lisa, who only replied, "She's fine. Give her space." Space? From what? The silence stretched into a week. Then 2. My mind spiraled. Was it me? Was there something I said? Did I push too hard when I asked her about moving in together? I replayed every moment, looking for a crack in the foundation I didn't see. But I kept it to myself, told my best friend Evan that she was probably just overwhelmed with work, told my mom that Clara was traveling, lied to myself that she'd come back. Until one night, 2 weeks after she vanished, I saw her Instagram post. It wasn't anything dramatic, just a selfie at a downtown rooftop bar, drink in hand, surrounded by laughing faces. She looked fine. Too fine. She wasn't missing. She was ignoring me. That realization hit harder than I expected. It wasn't a breakup. It was a disappearance, like I never existed. No explanation, no closure, just erased. And the worst part? Among the tagged people in that photo was Bree, Clara's best friend. The one who always looked at me like I didn't belong. The one who smiled too tightly when I showed up at dinners. The one who once told Clara, loud enough for me to hear, "Don't lose yourself in some guy's timeline." Something about that smile in the picture, Bree's arm around Clara's waist, it set something off in me. My gut twisted. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of the unraveling. And I wasn't ready for what would come next. There's a specific kind of silence that doesn't just feel quiet. It feels cruel. That's what the days felt like after I saw that photo. Each one dragging me further into a pit of confusion and anger. I stopped sleeping. Food didn't taste like anything. I started showing up late to work, and when I was there, I wasn't really there. My boss noticed. My coworkers whispered, but I couldn't tell them. My girlfriend ghosted me after 2 years of being together, and I don't even know why. That sounded pathetic. It felt pathetic. But I wasn't over her, not even close. I scrolled through our old photos, rereading text threads like they were ancient scriptures, trying to find a sign, a warning, something. I even considered calling Bree. God, I hated her. But maybe she knew something. Maybe Clara told her what happened. But every time I got to the call screen, I stopped. Bree never liked me. She wouldn't help me. If anything, she probably enjoyed watching me twist in the wind. One night, Evan came over. My best friend since college, the only one who could get away with calling me out without getting punched for it. "You look like hell," he said, dropping a bag of takeout on the table. "Still nothing from her?" I shook my head, barely glancing up. "She's not missing, man. She's choosing not to answer." I flinched. "You think I don't know that?" "No, I think you know it too well, and it's eating you alive. Come on, this isn't you." "What is me, Evan?" My voice cracked. I thought I knew who I was with her. I thought I knew where we were going, and now she's just gone. Evan looked at me, quiet for a beat. "Maybe she didn't ghost you. Maybe she was told to. That stopped me." "What? I mean, Bree's always hated you, right? Maybe she convinced Clara to leave, manipulated her. That girl always had a thing for control." I blinked. The thought hadn't crossed my mind. Not like that. Not directly. "You really think Bree could have made Clara leave me? Just like that?" "I don't know," he said. "But I know people talk. And you said Lisa, her sister, told you Clara was fine. Like she was expecting you to just back off." That stuck with me. Lisa's text, cold, empty, dismissive. Maybe she was, I muttered. You need to stop letting her live rent-free in your head, Evan said. You keep bleeding over someone who doesn't even want to offer you a damn Band-Aid. I didn't respond. But that night, lying in bed, I kept hearing his words. What if Clara didn't decide to ghost me all on her own? What if Bree had a hand in it? What if I was never enough in their world? The next morning, I woke up and opened Instagram again. I hadn't blocked her. Couldn't. Not yet. Clara had posted another story, a blurry boomerang of a wine glass clinking with breeze. The caption read, "To freedom." Freedom? What the hell did I do that made being with me feel like a cage? I sat there, staring at my screen, heart pounding, thoughts racing. She didn't just leave. She celebrated leaving. And Bree? She was right there, toasting it. I didn't know what was worse, the silence or the mockery in it. But something inside me hardened that morning. No more waiting. No more chasing. If she could toast her freedom, I'd build mine. Without her. I didn't know how, but I would. I had to. It had been nearly a month since Clara ghosted me. Funny how fast something so solid can crumble. People always say heartbreak is gradual, but that's not true. Sometimes it hits like a freight train. One day you're planning a vacation together. The next you're scrubbing her toothbrush out of the bathroom because the silence is screaming too loud. I stopped going to the coffee shop where we used to sit on Sundays. Couldn't bear it. The smell of vanilla lattes made my stomach turn. Instead, I worked late and went home later. I told myself I was healing, but I was just hiding. Then one night I ran into Nate. We weren't exactly close, but he used to hang around Clara's circle. Went to college with Bree. I was surprised he even remembered me. Hey, he said, pausing mid-step outside a bar. You're Clara's ex, right? I froze at the word. Ex. Yeah, I said carefully. I guess I am. He gave an awkward chuckle. Man, that whole thing was rough. What whole thing? He blinked. You know, the ghosting. Bree said, I cut in. What did Bree say? He looked uncomfortable. I probably shouldn't. I mean, it's not my place. Nate. My tone was sharper than I meant it to be. Please. He sighed. All right, look. Bree's been saying Clara cut things off because you were getting too intense. Like you were trying to rush her, pressure her into something serious. I stared at him. That's not true. We talked about moving in, sure, but Clara brought it up first. I'm just telling you what I heard, man. My hands curled into fists. I kept my voice steady. Did Clara say that? Or Bree? He hesitated. Bree, I don't think Clara talks about you. Not anymore. Not anymore. Those words sliced deeper than I expected. But under the sting, something else grew. Suspicion. It wasn't just that Clara ghosted me. Bree was crafting the story of why it happened, painting me as overbearing, toxic, obsessive. I wasn't any of those things. And Clara? Clara knew that. So why let Bree speak for her? Unless she was letting her on purpose. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch with a glass of whiskey, staring at the glow of my phone. I scrolled through Bree's profile, every perfectly staged photo, every passive-aggressive caption. She had started posting more often lately. Too often. And Clara? She was in fewer and fewer of them. Something was shifting. The next morning I texted Evan. You were right about Bree. She's telling people I was toxic. Nate confirmed it last night. His reply came instantly. She's been waiting to take your place. What do you mean? I mean, maybe Bree wanted you gone from the start. Maybe she wanted Clara all to herself. Or maybe she just wanted control. Some people don't need reasons. They just like to break things. I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, it made sense. Bree always inserted herself into our decisions. Are you sure he's the one? You deserve to keep your options open. She always made it sound like she was protecting Clara. But now I realized she wasn't protecting her. She was isolating her. One whisper at a time. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You okay? I stared at the message, my heart suddenly pounding. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Not right away. Then, "You know who. I just wanted to check in. Clara." I knew it in my bones. After weeks of silence, she reached out. But why now? Why just after I started learning the truth? I didn't answer her message. Not that night. Not the next morning either. After weeks of crawling through the wreckage she left behind, I wasn't about to sprint back at the first sign of her shadow. Let her wonder for once. Let her sit with the silence. Instead, I did something radical. I focused on myself. I stopped checking her social media, muted Bree's account, started saying yes when Evan asked me to hang out. I even joined a gym, the kind with intimidating lighting and overpriced smoothies. Not because I wanted to reinvent myself out of spite, but because I needed to feel something other than anger or confusion. That first week was brutal. Every set of weights reminded me of Clara. Every run felt like I was running from her ghost. But slowly the pain dulled. Not gone, just manageable. One night, Evan dragged me to a rooftop mixer. It was one of those post-work events where everyone wears business casual and pretends they enjoy standing under heaters with watered-down drinks. I wasn't expecting anything. Just another attempt at pretending I was okay. That's when I met Julia. She wasn't flashy. No dramatic dress, no rehearsed charm. Just a quiet kind of confidence. She asked what I did, and I gave her the usual half-interested reply about digital consulting. She smiled and said, "Sounds boring as hell, but you don't seem boring." I laughed for the first time in weeks. Julia didn't ask about my past. She didn't pry. She just saw me, and not as a broken man trying to piece himself back together. We started seeing each other after that. Nothing heavy. Coffee, bookstore dates, walks through the park. She was the opposite of Clara in almost every way. Where Clara had been fire and storms, Julia was calm waters. No games, no secrets. But a part of me stayed guarded. I wanted to trust her, needed to. But Clara's ghost lingered in the corners of every room, whispering reminders of how easily someone can disappear without warning, and how someone else can help them do it. Weeks passed. Julia never pushed, and for that, I was grateful. Then one night, just as I was beginning to believe life might settle into something peaceful, I got another message. Same unknown number. "I miss you. Can we talk?" My chest tightened. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. I looked across the table. Julia was in my kitchen, humming to herself while pouring wine. The lights were warm. The air smelled like rosemary and garlic. This was peace, but my past wasn't done with me yet. I put the phone down, unanswered again. Later that night, Evan called. "Bro," he said, low and urgent. "You sitting down?" "What now?" "Bree posted a story." "I don't follow her anymore." "Well, I do, and it's a video of her and Clara, drunk, singing karaoke. But that's not the weird part." "Then what is?" "She tagged you." My stomach sank. I opened the link he sent. The story was already gone, 24 hours and poof, but Evan had screenshotted it. In the corner of the frame, Clara was laughing, arm around Bree's neck. The caption read, "He thinks she just vanished, #girls do it better." I stared at those words for a long time. Mockery. Bree wasn't content to destroy quietly. She wanted me to know, wanted me to suffer. And Clara, she let her post it, maybe even encouraged it. I should have felt rage. Instead, I felt hollow, all that growth, all that healing. And just like that, the old wounds throbbed again. But this time, I wasn't going to bleed out. It was a Thursday. I remember because Julia had made lasagna from scratch, and the kitchen still smelled like tomatoes and garlic when I heard the knock on the door. A soft, uncertain rhythm. Not like Evan's usual aggressive pound or my upstairs neighbor's constant delivery guy. I wasn't expecting anyone. "Can you get that?" Julia called from the living room, flipping through a design magazine. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door. Clara. Hair longer than before, a little curlier. Wrapped in a black coat I'd bought her last winter, the one with the fur-lined collar. Her lips were bare, no makeup, but her eyes, those familiar hazel eyes, They were wild with something between regret and desperation. "Hi," she said. I didn't move. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. For a moment, I said nothing. I could feel Julia watching from the couch. I could feel my heart jackhammering against my ribs. I hadn't seen this woman in person for months, and now she was on my doorstep like nothing happened. "I'm busy," I said, keeping my voice even. Clara glanced past me and saw Julia. Her expression flickered. I just need a few minutes, please." Julia stood up. "Is everything all right?" Clara stepped back slightly, guilt bleeding across her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you had someone over. She looked at me again. "Can we just talk somewhere? Outside?" I hesitated. Julia gave me a nod. "Go, I'll finish setting the table." I closed the door behind me and followed Clara down to the street. The air was cold. She didn't say anything right away. "You look different," she finally said. "People change," I replied. "I didn't expect to see you with someone else." I laughed bitterly. "What did you expect, Clara? That I'd be sitting in the dark waiting for a ghost to reappear?" She flinched. I deserved that. We stood there quiet. A car passed. Somewhere a dog barked. "I didn't want to leave you like that," she whispered. "Then why did you?" She looked down. I was scared. Of what? You? Us? The way things were getting serious. Bree said. I cut her off. "Bree, of course." "I know what you're thinking," she said quickly. "And you're right. She was in my ear too much. But I wasn't strong enough to push back. She made me doubt everything. Said you were controlling. Said you were trying to cut me off from my life." "And you believed her?" "I didn't want to," she said, voice cracking. "But the pressure, the talks about moving in, the idea of giving up parts of myself, it overwhelmed me, and Bree twisted it all. Said I'd lose myself. So you ghosted me. You didn't break up. You didn't talk to me. You ran." "I know, and I regret it every day." "Funny," I said. "You didn't seem too regretful in that karaoke video." She looked stunned. "What?" "You let her tag me, publicly humiliate me, laugh about it." "That wasn't supposed to be posted. I was drunk. Bree uploaded it. I told her to take it down. But you were still there, laughing." "I wasn't laughing at you," she said, her eyes tearing up. "I swear I was trying to forget. It was stupid." I took a step back. "Why now, Clara?" She paused. "Because I saw you with her, Julia, and I realized I didn't just lose you, I gave you away." I looked at her for a long moment. This wasn't the same woman I knew. Or maybe it was. Maybe this version had always been buried under Bree's influence. But it didn't change the facts. "You don't get to show up now and rewrite history," I said quietly. "You left me in pieces." "I know," she said, "but I'm here now, asking if you'll let me explain." I didn't answer, because I didn't know. I didn't sleep that night. Julia didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. The look in her eyes when I walked back in said enough. She knew it was Clara. She knew something old had cracked open again. We ate in silence. She cleared the dishes while I stared into my wineglass like it held the answers. After she went to bed, I sat on the couch, scrolling through old photos I thought I'd deleted. Clara on my balcony, wind in her hair. Clara asleep on my chest after a movie night. Clara laughing in the snow, holding out her hand for me to catch up. Memories are cruel. They remember for you even when you don't want them to. The next day, I texted Clara. "Tomorrow. Noon. Cafe on 5th. No emojis. No questions. Just instructions." She replied within seconds. "I'll be there. Thank you." Julia didn't mention it the next morning when I left. I think part of her hoped I was finally closing the chapter. I wish I believed that too. The cafe was quiet when I arrived. Clara was already there, sitting near the window. She wore the same pale sweater I once said brought out her eyes. Her hands were wrapped around a coffee cup like she was holding onto it for stability. When she saw me, she stood up, a little too fast, then sat back down. I didn't offer a hug. "Hi," she said. I nodded and sat. "I wasn't sure if you'd come." "I wasn't sure either." She looked down. I'm glad you did. We sat in silence for a moment, just the clinking of cups and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine between us. Then she began. I know I owe you more than an apology. I owe you answers. I said nothing. Let her speak. I was scared, yes, but not just of you. Of everything. Of growing up. Of commitment. Of being seen. Bree. Bree fed that fear like gasoline on a fire. I raised an eyebrow. You're not a child, Clara. I know. I let her speak for me when I should have spoken for myself. She made it sound like being with you meant giving up who I was, and I let myself believe it because it was easier than confronting my own uncertainty. Uncertainty about what? She hesitated. About whether I deserved someone like you. About whether I was enough. Bree told me I'd lose myself with you, but the truth is, I'd already started losing pieces of myself to her. That hit differently. I never tried to control you, I said slowly. I just wanted us to grow together. I see that now, she said, eyes glassy. But back then, I was so deep in Bree's world I didn't know where she ended and I began. I leaned back. And the ghosting? Tears welled up, but she blinked them away. Bree told me not to explain. Said if I dragged it out it would hurt more, that I needed a clean break. She even helped me block you, took my phone, and I held up a hand. Don't put it all on her. She froze. You made the choice. You didn't say goodbye. You let her mock me online. You watched. And now that I've moved on, suddenly you want to explain? Her lips trembled. I didn't expect to feel this. Seeing you with her, with Julia. It made me realize I didn't just walk away from you. I walked away from the only part of myself that ever felt honest. My voice was flat. Now you feel honest? I feel broken, she whispered. But I want to fix it, if you'll let me. I stared at her. For a moment, I saw the girl I fell in love with. But I also saw the woman who abandoned me without a word. The woman who let another twist the knife. And behind her eyes I saw it again. Guilt, yes, but also something darker. Possession. Like she hated that someone else had picked up the pieces she left behind. I stood. I'm not the same person you left, Clara. And I'm not yours to fix. She stood too. Please, just don't shut the door. Not yet. I looked her dead in the eyes. You closed that door months ago. You just never expected I'd lock it. Then I turned and walked out. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. I didn't tell Julia right away. Not because I wanted to lie, but because I didn't know how to explain the look on Clara's face. That mixture of sorrow and control. It wasn't just regret. It was strategy. And if I admitted it, I'd have to admit I'd walked straight into her game. So I let things carry on. Julia noticed, of course. She was intuitive like that. Our dinners grew quieter, her smiles shorter. One evening she reached across the table, placed her hand over mine and said, You don't have to protect me from your past, but I deserve to know if it's still your present. I wanted to deny it, but the words got stuck. She pulled her hand back slowly. I'm not angry. I just don't want to be someone's rebound battlefield. That night I stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering what part of me still hadn't let Clara go. Was it love? Or was it just unfinished pain? The next morning I found a message from an unknown number again. Can we talk? I need to tell you something about Bree. I didn't respond. I already knew Bree was poison. What more was there to hear? But later that day, I received a second message. This one with a photo. Clara and Bree, smiling at a bar. Again. Date stamped the night after we met at the cafe. The caption, Told you he'd come crawling back. I stared at it, bile rising in my throat. I'd walked away, set boundaries, said no. And she was still twisting the story. Or maybe it wasn't her. Maybe Bree posted it. Maybe that was the point. I showed the message to Evan that night. He whistled low. They're baiting you. Why? Because you took the power back. You walked away. Now they're scrambling to rewrite the narrative. I don't get it. If Clara regrets what she did, why let Bree keep doing this? Maybe she's not letting her. Maybe she can't stop her. That made me pause. What if Clara wasn't just manipulated once, but was still caught in the same web? But then, why message me again? Why pretend to want peace? Unless she was luring me in to play out the same script, just wearing a different mask this time. Later that night, I sat alone on the balcony, cold beer in hand. The city lights buzzed beneath me. A new message buzzed on my phone. This time, it was Bree. She's still lying to you. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. Alone. I nearly dropped the phone. Bree had never messaged me directly before, never addressed me except through venomous captions or side eyes at parties. But now she wanted to talk. I didn't know whether it was a trap, a power play, or something else entirely. I screenshotted the message and sent it to Evan. He called immediately. "You're not actually thinking of going, are you?" "I don't know," I said. "She has no reason to lie now. She is the reason this entire mess exists." Exactly. And maybe if I understand why, I can finally end it. There was a long pause. "Just don't go alone," Evan said quietly. "She's dangerous in the way smart people with no conscience are." The next morning, I told Julia I needed time to think. She didn't cry. She just nodded like she'd already known it was coming. "I'll be here," she said, "unless you decide you're still living back there." I met Bree at a high-rise rooftop bar. Private, expensive, cold. She was already seated when I arrived, a glass of wine in hand, lips painted red like a challenge. "Glad you came," she said, smiling like we were old friends. "I didn't come for small talk." "Of course not. You want answers. The truth." She leaned forward. "So let's start there." I crossed my arms. "Why did you convince Clara to ghost me?" She didn't flinch. "Because I didn't like how much of herself she gave to you." That's not an answer. She lost her independence. She stopped showing up to our nights. She changed, and not in a way I liked. "You mean she grew up?" "I mean she disappeared, into your world. I pulled her out." I stared at her, stunned by the casual cruelty of it. "And what? You thought you were saving her?" "I know I did." Bree tilted her head. "But now, I think she regrets it." I scoffed. "You think?" "She wanted me to help her get you back," Bree said flatly. "That's why she let me post that photo. She wanted you mad, emotional, unbalanced. She thought that's when you'd listen." I went cold. "She's playing you both ways," Bree continued. "She still doesn't know what she wants, but she hates that you've figured out who you are without her." I stood up. "This was a mistake." "No," Bree said, standing too. "This is clarity." I walked away, but deep down I knew she was right. Clara didn't want me back. She just didn't want to be the one left behind. When I got home from the meeting with Bree, Julia was packing. Not everything, not dramatically, just a single bag, folded with the kind of quiet grace that hurts more than shouting ever could. "I'm not leaving," she said as I stepped in the door. "I'm pausing." "Julia, wait. I'm not mad," she interrupted, zipping the bag. "I'm just not going to sit in a relationship that feels like a waiting room for your past." I ran a hand through my hair. "I didn't go to Bree because I wanted Clara back. I went because I needed to end it for good." "And did you?" she asked, eyes locking on mine. "Did you really?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to swear it, but I hesitated. She nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." She kissed my cheek, soft and painful. "Call me when you're not haunted anymore." And just like that, she was gone. The next day, I didn't go to work. I didn't answer Evan's calls. I didn't scroll social media. I sat in the silence that Clara left in me months ago and realized it had never really gone away. It had just worn different faces. I opened my laptop, went back through old emails, messages, conversations. I wasn't looking for closure. I was looking for clarity. And what I found made my stomach twist. There was a series of messages from Bree to Clara. Screenshots Clara must have forgotten to delete from a shared cloud album we once used. Or maybe she never thought I'd look again. The messages were dated just before the night Clara ghosted me. "Bree, you have to do it now. Just vanish. He'll cling harder if you drag it out." "Clara, I don't know. It feels cruel." Bree. Exactly. That's how you make it stick. Ghosting is power. Clara. He's not a bad guy, Bree. He just wants too much of me. Bree. That's what all guys want. Attention. Ownership. Don't let him cage you. I slammed the lid shut. All this time I thought Clara had just been weak. But it wasn't just weakness. It was agreement. She let Bree orchestrate the cut. She handed her the scissors. Later that night, I found myself parked outside Clara's apartment. I didn't knock right away. I watched the light in her window. I tried to remember the woman I loved and couldn't reconcile her with the one who'd let someone else destroy me on her behalf. Finally, I went up. She opened the door wearing an oversized hoodie. No makeup. Eyes tired. "You came," she said, like she'd been expecting me. "You asked me to come back," I said, "but you never told me the truth." Her face paled. "What do you mean?" "You let her do it, Bree. You let her ghost me for you." Her lip trembled. "I didn't." "Don't lie, Clara," I snapped. "I read the messages." She looked like she'd been punched. "You told her I wanted too much of you, that I was a cage. That's not what I was the only one who showed up for you," I said. "The only one who stayed when everything got hard, and you made me a villain to justify walking away." Tears slid down her cheeks. I didn't know how else to leave. "You could have told the truth," I said, "but instead you picked silence, and then you mocked me with her." She sank to the floor, covering her face. I was lost. "No," I said. "You were cowardly." She looked up at me, red-eyed. "So what now? You hate me?" I stared down at her. "No," I said. "I pity you." I turned to leave, but she called after me. "Do you love her?" I paused. "Julia," she clarified. "Do you love her?" I thought about the way Julia touched my hand across the table, the way she smiled when I spoke about my dreams, the way she saw me, even when I didn't want to be seen. "Yes," I said. Clara's sob cracked the air behind me, but I didn't stop walking. Not this time. The days that followed weren't loud. There were no dramatic phone calls, no messages from Clara, no last-minute declarations, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't chase it. I let it sit with me. I went to work, ate alone, worked out, canceled plans with Evan. I needed space, not from people, but from the noise, from everything that had blurred my life for the last few months. Some nights I walked aimlessly for hours through the city. I passed restaurants where Clara and I used to eat, coffee shops where Julia and I used to sit. I didn't go inside. I didn't linger. I just walked, like I was tracing the edges of what had been and forcing myself to admit that it was over. All of it. What stung the most wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the lies. It was how easily I had made myself small for people who never intended to stay. Clara wanted me when I was hers, when I made her feel adored, needed, irreplaceable. Bree wanted power, nothing more. And Julia? Julia wanted truth. I wasn't sure I'd given it to her soon enough. One afternoon, Evan showed up at my door uninvited. "Still breathing?" he asked. "Barely." He tossed me a protein bar and sat down. "You look like you've been meditating with ghosts." "I have," I muttered. "They're not very good company." He leaned back, arms folded. "So what now?" "I don't know," I admitted. "For the first time in months, there's no one else left to blame. No more games, no more waiting. It's just me." Evan nodded. "That's the good part." "Doesn't feel like it." He gave a half shrug. "Truth usually doesn't, but it clears the path." I thought about that for days. Eventually, I started doing the things I'd put off. Updated my portfolio, scheduled a dental appointment, donated the box of old photos and gifts that had been gathering dust in my closet. I deleted the shared album Clara and I once used, burned a playlist or two, small things. But when you're rebuilding, small things matter. And then one day, I got a letter. Not a text, not a DM. An actual letter. Handwritten, addressed in tight, familiar cursive. Julia. I hesitated before opening it. My hands trembled. Inside was just one page. "I never asked you to be perfect. I only asked you to be present. I stepped away because I needed you to see what it felt like to stand without leaning on shadows. If you still want peace, real peace, then make it yours first. Don't chase mine. I believe you can. I still believe in you. J. I read it twice, then a third time, and for the first time in months, I let myself cry. Not because I'd lost something, but because I'd finally begun to understand what it meant to lose myself, and what it might take to get him back. The fallout wasn't fire. It wasn't an explosion. It was a quiet room, a soft letter, and a man sitting in silence finally ready to start again. Not with Clara, not with vengeance, but with truth. I used to think closure came from other people. An apology, an explanation, a gesture that said, yes, you were wronged. Yes, you mattered. But sitting alone on my balcony, with Julia's letter folded in my palm and the world quiet around me, I understood something no one ever teaches you in movies or books. Closure isn't something you get. It's something you choose. I didn't need Clara to say sorry again. I didn't need Bree to admit she went too far. And I didn't need Julia to come back just to prove I'd become someone worth returning to. I just needed to decide I was done letting people narrate my worth for me. So I began writing again. Nothing grand, just short reflections, pages that I never posted, journals that didn't beg for attention, only honesty. Every morning I wrote something, even if it was just a single sentence. You are not what she did to you. Loyalty is only powerful when it's deserved. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's survival. Evan started calling less, which I appreciated. He knew I was in the final stretch of something internal. That last bend in the road where no one can walk beside you. Not because they don't care, but because the terrain belongs only to you. Weeks passed. One night, I sat at the same cafe where I once met Clara after work, where I once told Julia about a childhood memory she laughed at until she snorted coffee out her nose. The waiter brought over a drink I didn't order. Compliments of the woman at the corner table, he said, nodding behind me. I turned, heart thudding. It wasn't Clara. It wasn't Julia. Just a stranger, smiling kindly over her laptop, headphones in, typing something. No agenda, no old wounds. Just a gentle reminder that the world keeps offering things, if you're willing to receive them without holding out your past like a shield. I didn't go over. But I smiled back. The next morning, I checked the mailbox for the first time in weeks. Another envelope. Same handwriting. Julia. This one was shorter. There's a gallery opening next Friday. Small, quiet, nothing dramatic. But it's the kind of place I think you'd like now. I'll be there. If you come, come as you. Not the man trying to be better for anyone but himself. If not, that's okay too. I'll be okay. Jay. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I needed her, but because I finally didn't. I still didn't know if I'd go, and that felt like power, real power. Not control, not possession, but choice. I closed the letter and went back to my desk, opened a new page, titled it, The Things I Learned When She Left. And I began to write, not for her, not even for me, just for the peace that finally stayed. I thought I was done. I thought the story was closed, wrapped in the kind of quiet that doesn't beg for sequels. But closure doesn't always come in silence. Sometimes it shows up again, uninvited, wearing a new face. It was a Thursday morning, cold, overcast. I had just gotten back from a run, still catching my breath when I saw it. An email, not from Clara, not from Bree, from someone I hadn't thought about in months. Clara's sister, Lisa, the subject line. You deserve to know. I froze. Lisa had always been distant, polite, a little cold. During my relationship with Clara, she kept her distance, treating me like someone temporary. I never blamed her. We weren't close. I opened the message. Hi. I debated sending this. Honestly, I don't like getting involved in Clara's messes. But I saw what happened to you, and I'm not okay with it staying buried. You probably already know about Bree and her influence. But there's something Clara never told you, something even Bree doesn't know. The night Clara ghosted you, she didn't just block you and walk away. She did it from Bree's apartment, and she wasn't alone. There was someone else, a guy named Daniel. Clara had been seeing him for weeks before she left you. She told me it wasn't serious, that it just happened. But it started before she left you. She let Bree spin the narrative to protect herself. Told everyone you were intense, possessive, that she felt unsafe. None of it was true. She lied to cover the fact that she cheated. I'm telling you this not to hurt you, but because if I were in your place, I'd want to know that it wasn't your fault. It was never about you being too much. It was about her being too weak to be honest. I hope you find peace. You earned it. Lisa. I read it twice. Then again. The words burned. She cheated. I had spent so long trying to figure out why Clara left, trying to dissect the fear, the manipulation, the jealousy. I let myself believe I wasn't enough or that I was too much. I let their lies shape my healing. And all along, the truth had been simpler, uglier. It wasn't emotional confusion. It was betrayal. She left because she had already replaced me. And everything else, every game Bree played, every attempt to control the narrative, every vague apology, had been built on a rotten foundation. It should have hurt more than it did. But I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. This wasn't another wound. It was a scar finally being named for what it had always been. I called Evan. Hey, he answered. Everything good? I got an email from Lisa. Clara's sister? What did she want? She told me Clara cheated on me before she left. There was silence. Then, you okay? I think so, I said. I think I've never been more okay. You sure? I spent months blaming myself, I said. Then months trying not to. Now I know the truth. And honestly, it doesn't change anything. I already mourned her. But now I'm free. Later that day, I walked by the gallery Julia had mentioned in her letter. I didn't go in. Not yet. I wasn't ready to see her. Not as a test. Not as a symbol. I was there to see if I could stand outside it and feel nothing but choice. I stood there for 10 minutes, then walked away smiling. Not because I was running, but because I finally knew nothing back there had power over me anymore. Peace, I've learned, isn't loud. It doesn't walk into a room and demand attention. It doesn't come with music swelling or a victorious monologue. It arrives like a breath you didn't realize you were holding, and it stays only if you don't grip it too tightly. I'd spent so long chasing resolution that when I finally found stillness, it scared me more than the pain ever had. There were no more calls to ignore, no more letters, no more late-night walks trying to outpace the memory of someone else's voice. Just mornings, coffee, blank pages, time, and slowly, peace became a routine. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't cinematic, but it was mine. Until one morning, I saw Julia again. I hadn't planned it. I wasn't even sure she still lived in the city. But there she was, sitting outside the same bookstore cafe where we'd once argued over the ending of a novel I never finished. She hadn't seen me. She was reading, her brow furrowed in concentration, a pen tapping gently against her bottom lip, still wearing that quiet intelligence like armor. I stood there for a while, not frozen, just considering. I didn't approach her. I went inside, bought a tea, and sat across the street. I watched the way she interacted with the world, smiling at the barista, pulling a strand of hair behind her ear when it got in the way, jotting notes in the margins of her book. She didn't look like a chapter I had to reclaim. She looked like someone I was finally capable of understanding. She left 20 minutes later, never noticing me, and for the first time, I didn't feel regret. I felt gratitude. Later that day, Evan dropped by with 2 beers and a quiet smirk. You look like someone who slept 8 hours and didn't check his ex's social media, he said. Because I did, and I didn't. We sat on the balcony in silence for a while. Eventually, he asked, You ever think about reaching out to Julia? I shrugged. I did. A few times. And? I realized I was thinking about her like an ending, not a beginning. He looked at me, confused. Explain. I kept imagining what would happen if she came back, like peace depended on that. But it doesn't. Peace happened without her. That's the part I needed to prove to myself. Evan raised his beer. To that. We clinked bottles. That night, I reopened the page I had titled weeks earlier, The Things I Learned When She Left. I added something new, Peace isn't the reward for pain. It's the discipline of not reopening wounds just to make sure they still bleed. I closed the laptop, and then, for the first time in what felt like forever, I made a plan. Not to fix something, not to prove anything, but just because I wanted to live again. I booked a solo trip, 3 days, a cabin upstate, nothing extravagant, no cell service, just trees, quiet, and whatever I still hadn't met inside myself. A year ago, I would have invited someone just so I didn't feel alone. Now, I craved the solitude. As I packed, I found the second letter Julia had written, the one about the gallery. I slipped it into the inside pocket of my bag, not because I needed it, but because it reminded me that peace isn't always about the people who leave. Sometimes it's about the ones who tell you, "I'll be okay even if you don't come back." That's what I wanted to become too. Okay, regardless. Enough as I am. There's something sacred about early morning in the mountains. No noise, no people. Just frost-lined windows, a crackling fire, and the kind of quiet that doesn't accuse you of anything. I spent the first morning of my trip sitting on the deck, wrapped in a blanket, notebook on my lap. The air was sharp and clean. My coffee was still steaming when I began writing, not about pain or memory, but about everything that existed after them. By midday, I had filled 6 pages. They weren't profound, no grand metaphors, just truths. And then, somewhere between lines, I started writing a letter, not for closure, not even to send, just a letter. To Julia. "Hey, I saw you at the cafe last week. You didn't see me." And I didn't interrupt, not because I was afraid, but because I finally understood what it means to let something be beautiful, even if it's not mine anymore. You looked peaceful. Maybe that's what moved me most. Not the way your lips still curled when you read something surprising, or the way you twisted your pen between your fingers like a nervous violinist. It was the stillness, the self-possession, the silence that looked earned. That's what I'm chasing now. Not someone to come home to, but a home inside myself. I want you to know that your words stayed with me. Your letters weren't bridges back to you. They were maps forward to me. You didn't just give me space. You gave me permission to be unfinished. And maybe I still am. But I'm finally okay with that. If you ever wonder whether I'm still looking for you, know that I'm not. I'm not searching for anything anymore. But I remember you like people remember sunrises. Not because they last, but because they change everything they touch. With gratitude. Me. When I finished, I sat there for a while, staring at the page. Then I folded it, slid it into my notebook, and didn't sign it. There was power in that. Not every truth needs to be delivered. Sometimes, knowing you could say something and choosing not to is what real peace looks like. That evening, I walked along a frozen trail near the cabin. My breath fogged in front of me, the trees whispering nothing and everything at once. I didn't check my phone, didn't refresh messages, didn't imagine Julia walking into frame like a well-timed movie ending. I was alone, and I liked it. Not forever, but for now. That night, I lit a fire, played a record I found in the corner cabinet, and cooked a dinner I didn't rush through. I didn't feel the urge to post it, to capture it, to explain it. The only witness to my healing was me. Before bed, I read the letter one more time. Then I burned it in the fireplace, not out of bitterness, not to erase it, but because some words aren't meant to linger. They're meant to rise, to disappear, and to free the space they once filled. The smoke curled into the air like memory, and I watched it go. I returned from the mountains lighter, not because I left anything behind, but because I stopped carrying what never belonged to me. It was a Wednesday when I got back. The city buzzed, indifferent and alive. The quiet I found in the woods didn't vanish. It followed me, tucked behind my ribs like a private oath. Evan stopped by that evening. "How was it?" he asked, unwrapping a sandwich on my couch like he lived here. "Quiet," I said. "Good." He nodded, chewing. "You look different." "Better?" "Lighter," he said. "Like you finally stopped bracing for impact." I smiled. We watched a game in silence. No emotional deep dives, just 2 people existing comfortably in the space healing left behind. Later, after he left, I found a small envelope slipped through the mail slot. My name was written on the front, no return address. Inside was a postcard, not from somewhere far, just a gallery flyer, minimalist, clean lines, and a short note on the back. There's an exhibit this Friday, no pressure. I'll be there for the opening. Come if you want, or don't. Either way, I'm glad you found your quiet. J. No signature, no expectations, just a door, unlocked but not pushed open. I read it twice, then set it on the kitchen table. Friday came quietly. I didn't plan to go. I didn't tell Evan. I didn't rehearse any words in the mirror or analyze what shirt would make me look casually unaffected. I just walked, not towards something, just not away. The gallery was tucked in between two cafes, small, intimate, lights low and warm. I stepped inside, unsure if I belonged. There were a dozen people, maybe more. Then I saw her. Julia stood near the center wall, sipping a glass of red wine, looking at a piece of art that was just layered white textures on canvas. But she stared like it held the answers to something unspoken. She turned before I called her name. She saw me. Her face didn't light up. It didn't crumple. She just smiled, soft, surprised, real. "You came," she said. "I did." "Why?" I thought about that, then shrugged. "Because I could." She nodded like she understood. "Want to see something?" "Sure." She led me toward a small room off to the side. Fewer people. Quieter. "This one's my favorite," she said, gesturing to a photograph. It was just a bench in winter, empty, snow-covered, nothing remarkable. And yet, it felt like waiting, like memory. "I used to think peace looked like this," she said. "Empty. Still. But now, I think peace is knowing someone could sit there, but doesn't have to." I looked at her. "That's beautiful." She turned to face me. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I really am." We stood in silence for a moment. Then she said, "You never replied to the second letter." "I wrote one," I said. "Just never sent it." She smiled. "I thought you might have." I reached into my jacket, pulling out a folded sheet of paper. I handed it to her. "Wait," she said, surprised. "You brought it?" I nodded. "You can read it later, or burn it, doesn't matter. I don't need a reply." She held it delicately like it was fragile. "Hey," I turned. "If you ever want to sit on that bench, I'd sit with you." I smiled. "I know." And then I stepped outside. No promises, no guarantees. And maybe it was. I stepped back, giving her space. "Take care of yourself, Julia. You too." I turned, walking toward the door, not out of sadness, not out of triumph, but because the moment had ended, and I had learned how to leave things whole. Before I crossed the threshold, she called out, just a man with open hands walking into a life that finally felt like his. A week passed, then two. No follow-up messages, no late-night calls, no dramatic replays of what was said in the gallery. Julia had the letter, and I had the silence afterward. It felt good, not the thrilling kind of good, the kind that just sits in your bones, quiet, steady, a warmth that doesn't flare, it lingers. I focused on my work again, wrote more, walked more. Evan and I grabbed beers and didn't talk about women for once. We talked about life, about what comes after the storm, when you stop measuring peace by what's missing and start recognizing what's present. Then one afternoon I got a text. It wasn't from Julia. It wasn't from Clara. It was from Lisa, Clara's sister. Just one line. "I found something. Thought you should see it." I replied, "What is it?" She didn't explain, just asked if I had a mailing address. A few days later, an envelope arrived, handwritten, no return address. Inside was a single folded page, creased, yellowed slightly at the edges, and a sticky note on top in Lisa's handwriting. "I found this when helping Clara clean out her storage. She never sent it. Maybe she never intended to, but it's yours." I unfolded the letter. "I don't expect this to fix anything. Honestly, I don't expect you to ever read it. But writing it feels like something I should have done before disappearing. I was unkind. Not just in leaving, but in how I tried to make you the villain so I wouldn't have to admit I was a coward. I let Bree talk me into believing you were too much. The truth is, I was too little, I was selfish, I was afraid, and I was weak enough to trade real love for false independence. You deserved better. You always did. I don't write this to ask for you back. I don't want to return just to re-break something. But if you ever wonder whether I felt anything real, know that I did. I just didn't know how to hold it without letting it scare me. I hope you find someone who sees all of you and never asks you to shrink. I hope she never makes you doubt how much you matter. And I hope, wherever this ends up, it brings you some kind of peace. Clara. I sat at the kitchen table with the letter in my hands for a long time, not crying, not angry, just still. It was the message I never expected, the one I thought I didn't need. And I was right. I didn't need it. But I accepted it anyway. Because forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's the quiet nod you give to the past, knowing it can't change, but you can. I didn't respond to Lisa. Didn't reach out to Clara, I didn't have to. That chapter was over. But something lingered in that final paragraph. I hope you find someone who sees all of you. Later that night, I took a walk. I ended up outside that same bookstore cafe. Julia wasn't there. But the bench across the street was empty again. I sat, not waiting, just sitting. I opened my notebook. Wrote one final entry. Sometimes the people who break you aren't meant to be villains. Sometimes they're just mirrors you weren't ready to face. And sometimes the ones who stay silent the longest carry the heaviest truths. But peace isn't getting the last word. It's choosing not to need one. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, I stood, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I walked home with no weight behind me, not even memory, just light.